everybody. This is Street Fight Politics. I'm Ed Westerfield. I'm one of your hosts tonight. I'd like to introduce Harry Ramsbottom, who is our military expert and has done wonders explaining the intricacies of government to us. And I'm going to turn this back over to Jimmy Zuma, who normally introduces our show, but he decided.
But I got a new piece of equipment that's not working right.
And anyway, this is Jimmy, and he
Let's
is a
be honest
journalist
about what happened. Oh, sorry.
that is goes back and forth between Washington, D.C. and Tucson, Arizona. So,
That's
Jimmy,
right.
take it away.
Well, here's the introduction I had. My buddy Ed Westerfield, who we call him Ed Whole Foods Westerfield, and my buddy Michael, or Harry Ramsbottom, and we call him Harry Cracker Barrel Ramsbottom. And I'm Jimmy Zuma in Washington, D.C. So it's almost like I didn't screw up at the beginning. Well, listen, there's a lot going on. We have a lot to talk about today. And one of the first things I want to talk about is I want to talk about this pathetic Mitch McConnell Senate that we have. And, I took the opportunity to look back at what they have done since election. And, they haven't passed a relief. They haven't even passed the defense. They passed it once, but now they have to override the veto of the Defense Act. But they did do some other stuff. One is they have been appointing a lot of judges. And the other is they've been naming a lot of things. And, the secret thing, though, is that they've been appointing a lot of marshals to 4-year terms, U.S. Marshals. All around the country, they've been appointing these U.S. Marshals to 4-year terms and appointing people to boards and commissions where they have influence over, like water policy or any of the kind of things where they can really affect how the country runs. So they've been cramming boards. They've been cramming the marshal's office, and they've been cramming judges. That's what they've been doing.
Well, what you're saying is they're actually filling in the deep state, the people that aren't the people you see in the news as the senators and representatives. It's the people that actually do the work, make the decisions, the stuff that they were complaining about. And now you've got something that if you're from the progressive side of the spectrum, you're going to be dealing with people that, aren't just on the conservative side. These are the people that are the QAnon people that, literally think that we're supposed to turn an election over to Donald Trump. And those are the true deep state people now that will be doing their best to interfere with Joe Biden's administration for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think this can really be overstated, honestly. You've got these people who you have appointed to these boards. They're going to be there for 4 years or whatever the term is.
Or 5.
And you really can't blast them out with even dynamite. They're going to be there. They're going to have their opinions made. And that's going to be the shit stain that we deal with for the next term.
Yeah, and to me, the most concerning thing is the marshals. I haven't heard that reported anywhere, but dozens and dozens of U.S. Marshals for various jurisdictions have been appointed since the election and are confirmed since the election, confirmed by the Senate since the election. In the meantime, they can't get anything else done. And it's really kind of pathetic. And now Mitch McConnell is trying to torpedo the entire stimulus bill.
Yeah, I think he's playing, theater there, honestly, because I don't think anybody expects that this will not pass. He's got to pass this if he's going to get his majority after January 5th in Georgia. But he's playing the game, the procedural game, and he's playing to his own funders, because that's really who's calling the shots here, the funders who pay for his PAC to get other senators elected. And at the same time, he's got to play for Georgia and getting those people elected there as well. So it's just a matter of time. We will get our $2,000 checks. I'm all but sure of that.
I don't agree with that. I think that, the thing that is left out of your equation is he doesn't have to pass it if he can blame Democrats. Now, Mitch McConnell may have to go ahead and do this, but he doesn't want to do it. And right now he's talking about poison pill things like reforming, internet regulations and things related to voter suppression. They want to, he wants to include new things related to voter suppression. And if he does that, that's a poison pill. And that means Democrats will not be able to vote for it. And then he gets to blame Democrats. And that's his end game, is to not do anything he doesn't want to do and blame Democrats for it, I think.
Okay, we're going to disagree, and that's cool because that's why it's street fight politics, right? But
Yeah.
I think he's going to try to put as many of his own pet projects into that as possible. And yeah, maybe they're poison pills, maybe they're not. But ultimately this will pass. And if it doesn't, then next week the bottle of wine sitting on your desk will be on me.
Well, that's the thing.
Ooh, that
The
sounds
future
like
always tells the truth. We give our opinions, and the future tells the truth.
That's exactly right. I mean, how could it be otherwise?
What are you thinking, Ed?
Well, I'm just looking at Chuck Schumer stopped his fundraising for the two candidates in Georgia, and I'm not sure quite what to make of that. I mean, both sides have put in, hundreds of millions of dollars, just for the special election, and for him to stop, to me, sends a bad signal. It's he's not going to go to his donors and say put money in a losing cause, and so I'm hoping and hoping and hoping that they get through, and there's certainly a lot of enthusiasm, but the tea leaves are pretty murky right now.
Yeah, this was always a long shot to get two senators from Georgia.
I think what we're seeing is really, truly nobody knows. I mean, my response to what Ed said, and it's just an opinion, is that at this point, the money's already spent. Either you got it or you don't, and they're already, why pour any more into it when the election is really just a week away? But you know what? Again, we just don't know, and the polls from there are worthless. I'm just going to say that. The things I look to and make me optimistic are the numbers of new voters that have been registered, the number of votes that have been cast. I think those are, and the funding that has already gone into that, where the Democrats are far outraising the Republicans down there. I think those are all very optimistic signs. But in the end of the day, it's going to be up to the people who actually show up and cast their votes at the polls.
One of the other things is that, let's say we do get two Democratic senators out of Georgia. Now we get 50-50 and we get the tiebreaker with the vice president. I think the biggest thing that's going to do is this is going to let you get Supreme Court justices and other judges that you're going to put through. But when it comes to getting through other bills, particularly economic bills, all it's going to take is one Joe Manchin to go rogue, or you've now got 100 senators that can now go in and say, I'm not going to vote for this unless you do this. So I look at it, it's not a Pyrrhic victory, but it's not the huge victory everybody thinks it's going to be. I mean, basically it's a victory for getting your Supreme Court candidates in. After that, I think that it's, to expect that you're going to have 50 senators all vote in lockstep, especially on the D side, is fantasy.
Well, Joe Manchin is a perfect example because he's done that over the years. He's a conservative voice in the Senate, not even Republican light. I mean, his Republican orthodox, I think, in his thinking. Now, he's modified some in the last few years. I think Donald Trump has taught Joe Manchin the importance of working together. And I think that there's another part to this that we shouldn't, which is no matter what happens, as long as Mitch McConnell is not in charge of the Senate, we have a chance to reform the Senate to being the Senate, which it is not now.
Yeah, well, that would definitely be a victory then.
Well, I think that's the thing that we really need to focus on, is that without Mitch McConnell in that role, we can actually make some changes in the Senate and return to what John McCain talked about with regular order. Why do we have all these special rules that allow someone like Mitch McConnell to dominate when, in fact, the Senate for a century plus operated another way, more functional way?
Right. And it was always the slow body. It was always the slow body, the last leg in the chain of getting things done. But things got done. Really, this all goes back to I forget the guy's name, but he was the first, like Mitch McConnell, Newt Gingrich. It all goes back to Newt Gingrich, who decided he would not pass any legislation that didn't have a majority, enough votes to pass among Republicans. He wasn't going to give Democrats the opportunity to even vote on things that it might be a combination of Republicans and Democrats that voted.
Well,
for
that's why we're now legislating by brinksmanship. It's like
Right.
the whole thing where every year it seems like that. Well, we're bumping up against the debt limit, and it's like now we've got to shut down government, and it's like it's something that it's just a little tear to the fabric of being able to govern this country. It started with a little rip, but you've got some holes starting to show up.
Well, and it was Newt Gingrich, I believe, in 1995 that was the first one to really bring this government shutdown brinksmanship to the equation. And I mean, we've had 3 major government shutdowns since 1980, when they passed the law that allowed that to actually be a thing. And Newt Gingrich pioneered that. And honest to God, he's going to be one of these people like Mitch McConnell, like Donald Trump, who we're going to point back to in 20, 30, 40 years when our grandkids are learning things, or their kids are learning things, and say, these are the people who ruined America.
And Ronald Reagan should be on that list too.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that as well, even though I call myself a Reagan Republican. Yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I have to, send that apology out too. I voted for the man twice, and now that I'm able to have the hindsight to look back, he was a catastrophic president for this country, right, and the things that he unleashed. And now I'm just hoping I can spend the rest of my life, trying to, stop the decline and pull the country out before this plane augers in.
I totally, echo that, Ed. I respect you for having said that, and I say the same thing myself. We fucked up. We elected somebody back in 1980 and then 1984 who led us down a path to where we are now. And I don't think they would be excited about where they led us, but nonetheless, that's what they did.
Well, I mean,
where we are.
He was the first one to perfect, using lies and subterfuge. I mean, it's like now you find out he had, when he was running against Carter in 80, he had cut a deal with the Iranian mullahs, to tell them, don't make a deal with Carter, and you'll deal with me afterwards.
How
and so
sleazy is that?
Well, I mean, the whole thing is that that's the whole 444 days that you have hostages in there. That could have been ended way earlier. And I go back and look at Carter, because I remember at the time, oh my God, Carter's a Democrat and he's progressive. And he was actually doing some really good stuff. But, his fatal flaw is that he wasn't able to delegate. It's like he had to be in charge of everything, and you cannot do that. I mean, that was the whole flaw with Desert One when they sent in the helicopters. I mean, when you look at it in retrospect, he was trying to run it literally from the West Wing, and with shortwave radio, and
that's the whole backstory that got us to where we are today, with a Senate that doesn't function, that packs the Marshals office, that packs the judges, and that packs all the commissions in the last few days they have before Joe Biden becomes president, and they can't make any more bad confirmations. Ed, you've been talking a lot about the COVID vaccine distribution. You have something for us on that?
Oh yeah, where do I start? If you're worried about taking the COVID vaccine, dying is not your biggest problem. Right now, the people, it's like I've got my next door neighbor right now who's been incapacitated for 6 days now, has not been able to get out of his bed. I've got 2 personal friends now that have come down with it. And again, the person that's my age is having some issues, being able to breathe. He's still at home, but it's like, it's hitting home close now. As far as the vaccine itself, what I'm seeing is that in the hospitals that are trying to divvy this out, you're seeing almost like a Hunger Games attitude with the staff, and who gets it, who doesn't, who's first in line, who has to come afterwards, and literally almost fist fights when where people are saying, "Hey, that guy's some radiologist that sits in a dark office and he's in line while I'm down in an emergency room, ankle deep in blood, snot, and piss, and I can't get mine." And it's having a very deleterious effect on morale in the hospitals. Type in that on the outside that you're also seeing people trying to jump the line. It's like, how many politicians have we seen in the last few days that were, howling about, this is a hoax and, the vaccine was bad for you. And they're the first ones pulling their arm out there, jab that needle in.
Right.
Yeah,
The
virtually
biggest-
every Republican politician, by the way, at this point.
Here's the thing that I think is the real tragedy right now, is that this is system of distributing the vaccine and getting it so that it's out actually being given is a disaster. Right now, we should have 10 million people that had already been vaccinated. We just hit 2 million today.
Right. And
It's like when-
the administration has claimed that 2 million was 10 million too.
No, that is a out and out lie. I mean, that's a
I think
lie that I can see with my own eyes. And I mean, from my own experience, I got my vaccine last Wednesday, was after the last show. And, I had to go through a lot of rigmarole because the Maricopa County, you have to register with them and go through and then get selected and then get your golden ticket to go out to the site to do it. And once I get out there, it's like I drive right up to where the front of the line should be, and I'm sitting there talking with the guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's like, we do, at the time then they were doing like 1,000 to 1,200 a day, and they had the capacity to do 4,000 a day." And it's been like that ever since. I mean, it's like they've never gotten up any place close to capacity. I mean, it's like all these, what they finally decided is, you've got this cumbersome system. Make it so that, if you're a frontline employee, just show up with your badge and just walk up. And even doing that, you're still no place close to capacity. I mean, at this rate, we're looking at March before you even get the frontline providers, much less this next batch of vaccines that are going to be going out, where you're getting the, just the over 65, no matter what you do crowd. I mean, at the rate we're going, we will not be out of this COVID nightmare, probably ever. So, but the good news is Biden's going to be taking over in 20 something days.
Right.
They will put in a new plan, and what you need now is Operation Warp Speed. Get your arm out the window
Right.
and get a
Start
jab with
warping.
a needle.
Ed,
Start
is
warping his
that is that just simply because people aren't showing up, or what's the reason
No,
why?
no,
we aren't?
no. Oh, no. I mean, no, trust me. I mean, it's like today when I was doing my cases in the operating room, people were quizzing me, what'd you do? How'd you get it? And, it's just like the Contagion movie. It's like, as soon as we got done with it, everybody that didn't have someplace else to go went out to the site where you can just walk up. And I mean, they had, some hurry in their step to get out of there. They knew that, I want to get this done before I actually get exposed to COVID and actually contract it, and it's like, you can say, well, I'll just wait a day. Well, if you get COVID in that day, you're screwed. So, that's the mindset that's out there and out there for the people that want to get it. And the mechanism for actually distributing the vaccine is catastrophically bad.
Well-
I couldn't make it worse if I tried.
We need the National Guard involved in this. I mean,
They
we
are.
really need
They
the
already are.
National
It's like
Guard.
the whole point is that once you get up to where the actual distribution of the needles, the shots are, the National Guard is directing traffic in. You've got EMTs, firefighters, nursing personnel that are doing it. I mean, that part of it actually is being run very, very well. So once you finally get to the site where they're doing the injections, it's all systems go.
Right. Well, I
It's
want the
everything-
National Guard or the military getting the doses from the manufacturer to UPS and FedEx, and I think that will speed things up quite a bit because something's happening in these warehouses, or in the
No,
distribution.
Jimmy, that's not the issue. The issue is that you set this system up to qualify to get the shot that has made it so that, it's like you have to go online, fill out a form online, answer all these questions to see if you qualify or not, and it will rank you. And whoever's programmed this thing has made it so that it's almost impossible, even after you qualify, to secure a time to get the shot. It's like literally, it took me 4 days after I'd qualified. I'd keep going on every day, pick out a center. Now pick out a time. There are no times available today, and I was going out to February and it wouldn't give me a time.
But that's
So-
just the Arizona system. I
was
think
going to say,
around the country.
is that just Arizona?
Well, because the federal
it's
government has
Arizona's
left it to the
particular,
states. The federal
it's
government has
also
left
everybody
it to the
else.
states, and that's just
And
not necessary. It's just
that's
not necessary.
correct.
We could open up every National Guard armory and set up lines for people to walk in and get it. We don't have
We generally
shots.
could, because I will tell you that in almost every National Guard armory, there is at least one soldier assigned who can give vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably an understatement in reality. So
Yeah.
you could in fact just do that and mobilize 5 or 6, or let's just say a dozen National Guard soldiers per armory, and have them actually distribute those vaccinations.
I think what's going to happen is once we get to the point where we're trying to vaccinate the general public, this is going to devolve into a free for all if we don't change what we're doing drastically.
Right.
We need to get rid of this qualification system. It's like that in itself has made it so that it's literally discouraging the people that need to get the vaccine from getting the vaccinations right
And
now.
all that's totally unnecessary. If you show up
Exactly.
with a badge and the badge says a qualified occupation, that's all you should have to do.
And I think what you're really describing is a failure of government, a failure
Oh,
of national
yes, I
government
am. Big
across
time.
the entire continent that basically didn't.
Well, can you
plan for
imagine
this,
that? You've
didn't
got
come
Trump
through
in
with this.
charge and there's a failure of government.
Yeah,
And Jared Kushner, who's known around the White House as the guy who, if he's involved in something and it goes well, he takes credit. And if it doesn't go well, he disappears. You haven't heard from Jared in a while. I really think that it's the federal link that's at least a big part of the problem here. So Joe Biden could potentially fix it, but it's not going to happen right away. And at the rate we're going, I just did some back of the hand math on this. It will take 15 years at the current rate to vaccinate everybody in the country.
Yeah, we should be doing this so that by the 1st of September, we should be wrapping this up, and then we're not going to even come close to that right now.
Right.
well,
And then-
I bought some more masks.
You're going to need them.
Yes.
You're
It
going to need
sounds
them.
like
We're
what
going to.
the Colorado has the enhanced COVID. They just diagnosed it there
Yep.
from a person who hadn't traveled anywhere. So they got it
Yeah.
from somebody else in Colorado.
Now, the
It's
good
here.
news is the vaccine will prevent you from getting the enhanced version, but it's, that it's even more reason to get out and get this vaccination as quickly as you can. I can't not stress that enough. It's almost like, this is the Titanic, and there's only so many slots on the boats right now. You better be jumping for a boat because there's going to be a lot of people that are still going to get sick and die just because we are failing to get people vaccinated in a timely fashion.
Ed, not to gainsay you at all in this, because it is incredibly serious. But the other reality of that is that as long as the rest of us who cannot get inoculated soon enough wear our masks, wash our hands, keep our social distance, stay home, don't go out, and continue to suffer through this, I mean, that's really the best medicine that we have until we actually have the medicine, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But I'm also saying from a social standpoint, the longer this goes on, you know, you're going to be seeing people like me who've been vaccinated that now I'm safe and you're not. And, you know, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of resentment that's going to be starting here very soon.
I
If we
totally
don't-
agree with that. Absolutely.
Well,
There's
and-
the have and the have-nots. That's
Yeah.
what this is.
We've already seen some vaccinations be sidelined and given to people who aren't on the list. Now, how
Yeah.
did that happen? I don't know.
Well, you know, when you see Marco Rubio and his ilk, who have bitched and complained about mask rules, et cetera, and said it was a hoax to begin with, and now they're rolling up their sleeves ahead of, well, 2/3 of this panel. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one who's really old, so it ought to be in the front of the line. So, okay.
Yeah. Well, all I have to say to them is fuck them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, by the
Well,
time
I
I
mean,
get it, I probably won't be able to remember where to go.
But, you know, again, you just, you know, it's like Mike was saying that you've got this tremendous failure of government, that the one thing that we're supposed to be doing, taking care of people in common, which supposedly even the most hardcore right wing person would agree with, and we're failing at it. You know, it's like, this is something that this is for the common welfare of all of us, right there in the Constitution, and we're failing.
Well, you know,
And
it's funny.
we shouldn't be doing this.
Funny you should say that, because you know the thing that came to my mind was the cartoons we had when we were kids. You know, why the Constitution provide for the common defense against diseases would be one. Promote the general welfare, and you know, promote the blessings of liberty. And
Right.
this
Mike, let's
government
just
has
look at
not
the-
done any of those things.
Let's just look at the military. I mean, we had an entire aircraft carrier wing shut down, you know, early on in COVID. You know, they were, you know, you had an entire group that's supposed to be keeping us safe that was not battle ready. You know,
Right.
they couldn't even put to sea.
And you don't
No.
read about that, because that's exactly the thing that we don't want to put out there to the rest of the world, that our military is incapable. But in fact, our military was and probably remains incapable of doing what it's designed to do right now.
Right. And that comes at a time when the Russians can basically do whatever they want because Donald Trump is their buddy and he's even not there. He's on the golf course. How can you play golf every day? That seems like the most, I mean, I can see if you like golf, you play golf once, maybe twice a week, but every day?
It's
That
hiding.
sounds so boring.
It's psychological hiding. It's like,
Yeah, right.
You know, the guy is, you know, I mean, this is getting off on another topic, but, you know, he's trying to burn everything down that he can. And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, literally. And for him, I mean, I was talking with somebody today, is the bet is does he even go back to Washington, you know, before January 20th?
Good question. I actually have a point on that. So here we are,
Okay.
and Donald Trump, yes, you know, because I'm histrionic. That's what I do.
Yes.
And I'm not even remotely Italian. This is all Anglo-Celtic stuff going on here. So Donald Trump has put out there to all of his minions and myrmidons that January 6th, be there, be square, be in downtown DC to bitch and complain, because of course that's when Congress is going to certify the election. And so as much as I've gone out there and said in multiple places that he's going to disappear, he's not going to be back, I actually think that he will be in DC on the 6th to be there with his peeps and promote whatever last gasp ridiculousness he's trying to put out there in the infosphere. So,
Well,
yeah, I think he's going to come back. I don't know what he's going to do after that. I hope he doesn't come back. But I can tell you this, and you heard it here first, guys. I'm going to be out there on the 6th with the camera crew talking
Good.
about what's happening in downtown DC.
That sounds great. And I have bad news for the Proud Boys on that score. The Discount Hotel Harrison, where they all stay, and the dive bar Harry's, where they all drink, are both going to be closed. The hotel from the 4th to the 7th, and Harry's from the 5th to the 6th. So I think the Proud Boys are going to be sleeping in tents.
Well, sucks being them.
'Cause they can't afford to stay at the Trump Hotel or basically any other hotel. I mean,
Well, on
Harrison
other
is-
on other hotel news, the Trump Hotel, which was the old post office building, just released the entire bank of rooms they'd been holding back for the inauguration for Trump, and they're open to the general public now. And they decreased the rates by 25%.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go to the old Ebbett Grill for an early lunch that day prior to filming these things, and maybe drinks afterwards, depending on how it goes.
Right. And you wait, in a year from now, the Trump Hotel will be the discount hotel, somewhere along the $88 a night rate that the Hotel Harrison charges, which is a fourth of what a hotel costs in D.C. I know that's ridiculous, but that's the truth. So
Big cities.
yeah, let's talk infrastructure.
Good question. Okay, so let's be realistic.
Trump ran on this, that he was going to do an
Yeah.
infrastructure that never happened.
So we had this guy. I'm gonna be generous and say a middle-aged white man in Nashville this past weekend, who on Christmas Day drove his RV downtown, went way out of his way to avoid killing anybody other than himself, and blew it up next to an AT&T building that, from what we can tell with early reports, he targeted because of 5G technology. Okay. And it caused problems. I mean, we had any number of communication problems across the region, from Alabama to East Tennessee and probably other places we don't
Up
know.
into Kentucky also.
And up into Kentucky, because Nashville is, there. And this was a problem. And what I think is laid bare is not that we have to worry about 63-year-old white man who not led the lives they wanted to lead, but more about the fact that our infrastructure is at risk and has been at risk. I want to give a little history here, and then I'm going to release it back to you guys. But after 9/11, we spent a ton of money across the country on local governments, helping them assess the risk to their infrastructure. And this is everything from communications to transportation to, medical, infrastructure, getting things out there to the people. And so I will tell you that at this point in our national life, we've probably got as good a fix on what our critical infrastructure is as we may have ever had before. The problem is that after we assessed all this at the local, literally at the city and county and state levels, we then didn't spend a lot of money helping to fix those problems. And that's where you see here, where you've got a building where an RV packed with some sort of explosive can blow up outside the building and create this kind of havoc. And we can't do anything about it. We haven't done anything about it.
The one thing we did spend a lot of money on, though, is the infrastructure for emergency services. We created a whole separate band for emergency services to use, and we enhanced and we did all that, and apparently that's what was knocked out. 9/11 in these multiple states, the police communications, the fire communications. It was real.
Oh, they shut down air
stuff.
traffic control at the
Air traffic
Nashville
control.
airport.
Yeah.
And the question I have is, why does all this go through one building?
It's a switching center, and so that's the way they're designed, so that everything can communicate with cable, TV, radio, whatever.
Right.
That's the without going into a long lecture about it, you need everything together so they can communicate with each other, take something in, get it back out someplace else different. The problem is that also makes it vulnerable, because it's real easy to go in, you screw with that, and you shut a lot of stuff down. That's what we learned. That's what we really learned with this. And I don't know that he's that brilliant of a strategist, to have gone in and knock this out. I think there was a little of just dumb luck that, he just parked it down there and nobody thought that, it turns out fairly expensive motor home is sitting outside of the building for 5 hours and nobody said anything about it. It's like I had time today to go downtown Phoenix to our local switching center and walked around with a camera, taking pictures, video. and nobody's batted an eye. I mean, nobody said a thing. In fact, I had security people walk past me, a cop car roll past me, zero. And my question is I'm looking at this building, roll a tanker truck up of gasoline and light a match, and you'd blow one whole side of the building. Now, I don't know what is in the building and where it's located, but just the fact that I drove all the way around it, all four sides of it, and other than the fact there's no windows facing the streets, you could drive. In fact, they had parking.
That we were about to see it there, weren't we?
Yeah, we're gonna see it.
Roll tape.
And Amy actually has a good point. Yeah, I'm a white guy, and so my white privilege definitely showed up. If I was black, I'd still be in jail. So,
we had that same discussion before the show, Amy. And, Steve points out that our communications infrastructure contains some redundancies. There are not enough redundancies. There are not enough separation. There's not enough separation, and there's not enough redundancy. The activities for, 911 should have been able to be moved to another place, just rerouted and be functional. And, TV, cell phone, every kind of communication was destroyed by some guy with a motorhome.
Well, and I mean, Steve brings up a point that, we should have the redundancies. And the thing is in Nashville, you had the airport shut down for almost 18 hours, and cell service in some parts of Kentucky is still not up. Right. It's, you had, my sister lives in Nashville, and they had AT&T cell service was out for over 48 hours just in Nashville. So you found out that, just one building, and just one part of the building, and if you were trying to plan something, nefarious, you just got a lot of information as your potential terrorist, trying to attack. If you wanted to take down communications nationwide, you don't have to take out, something in every town. You just need to go into Nashville, probably 10 or 15 other critical nodes around the country, and you've literally shut out the ability to communicate, with all of our emergency responders.
Well, and as I indicated earlier, this is not new information. We know these vulnerabilities exist. We mapped them thoroughly, but then we lost we lost our eye on the ball, and we, because it's expensive, you have to literally build new buildings. You have to distribute all these switching systems, et cetera. And if you don't spend the money on it, it doesn't happen.
Look, here's the whole thing is, and this is what I've seen in 35 years of dealing with administration types, is that you're right, it's expensive, and it doesn't have an immediate return. It's like, you're dealing with a, something potentially happening in the future.
Well,
there's another
factor at play here, which is that we passed a tax cut for rich people and corporations that completely gutted the federal treasury. So the reason that we didn't have any money to do these things is in large part because of the giveaway to the rich.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, both of those things are entirely correct. One, you can't prove a negative. So if you build up these things, if you protect them and nothing happens, it's like, why did we spend all that money? And then at the same time, then you take away the money because of these tax cuts that do nothing except help rich people. And you don't have the money to be able to spend on what you should have to begin with. I mean, this is, again, a failure of our federal government at the most fundamental level.
Right. Absolutely. And it's a failure of the Trump administration. It's a dramatic failure. We saw our election systems fail in 2016, and Russia just hacked into all of our agencies, many of our agencies this week.
I want to point out something about that as well. So, we had a little bit of discussion about that last week about what Russia was able to access and what they weren't able to access. And I've seen nothing that suggests that they were able to access our secret classified systems. Mm-hmm. But the kind of information they were able to hack into is exactly what we saw exposed here this week with that explosion. Most of that critical infrastructure assessment, the mission essential vulnerability assessments, the MEVAs that were out there after 2001, are not housed on classified systems. They're housed in unclassified systems so that your local police department and fire department and the the agencies that will fix these things can gain access to them. So that's
Well,
exactly what Russia was able to tap into and find out where all these critical points of failure are
yeah.
because they're not classified. They're just protected.
And, you can do that too. Just, go on Google and search AT&T, and you'll know where
Exactly.
to plant your bombs. So,
Yeah, it's not hidden. In fact, I did that exercise today, and yeah, I'm surprised I don't have like a black
Visitors.
helicopter flying over my house right now. So,
you're going to have
But,
to wait for
yeah.
Biden for effective law enforcement.
but yeah, I mean, it's like you Google and Google Map, and it's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's entirely true. I mean, it really is. We like to think that these things are, something like agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., behind protected barriers, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera. But they're really not. They're out there so that our protectors, our local government people can get access to them. Because if they were behind, the green door of the protected SIPR net, et cetera, then your local fire station couldn't gain access to it and know what to protect.
Well, the other thing is that corporations that own all this stuff, it costs money to do that, so they're going to do as little as they can, spending money to harden these and protect these. I mean, there's no mission in there for them other than just making sure that they can keep their services up and running.
Right.
They're not going to be spending $1 billion to make it so that you can't fly a 747 into it. Now, they did that for nuclear power plants. Literally, you can fly a 747 into the domes at the nuclear power plant, and it'll make a big hole, but it will not break through. So, they were told to do that, and they did. But when it comes to the things like communications, we do not have that. You can park an RV filled with explosives next to the wall and take down 3 states.
Well, and the
And
Pentagon
that's what
is
a
hard now,
63-year-old disaffected person showed us this past week.
Well, I'm 63, and I'm sort of disaffected. So.
Hey, you guys are almost as old as me. What's going on here?
I'm 8
And,
years
I've been
behind
looking
him.
at RVs lately, so man, it's like,
That's when you know you're old.
yeah.
When you're, the
Yeah,
full
it's
time.
like, that RV's
sitting
starting
around
to
the
make sense.
campfire.
Yeah.
Sitting around the campfire swapping, stories about, your tongue weight.
Nom
and stuff like
stories.
that. Yeah. Well,
You were
listen,
there, you never know. You never
That's
understand.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Well, I mean, I think that's about our show for today. We've covered a lot of ground. We've made a lot of recommendations. We've made a lot of criticisms, and I just can't wait for Joe Biden to show up.
Yeah.
No.
Again, I just want to emphasize to everybody that gets this message that you're going to have to advocate for yourself on this vaccine. So do not take no. Get out, for the people that you love and care for. You do what you have to do to get in line. And
So I just want
get
to
them
put a
there.
plug in very quickly for next week. We're going to be on Tuesday the 5th, which is when Georgia will be voting. I don't think we're going to have any resolution on which way Georgia votes that day. But the very next day, I'm going to try and set up some live shots from downtown DC from about noon DC time on until completion. But I plan on being down there with a crew.
And
just
we'll
make sure
definitely
that
have some interesting early information from.
Well, just
for the
make
next
sure
show.
you're wearing some type of tracking device. So if a black van comes up and some guys throw you into it, we'll know how to find you. So.
Well, you can find me
Black
on Find
van.
Friends
I
on
thought
my-
you said
on my
black
iPhone.
man.
No, black van.
Black van.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
VAN.
If I'm downtown, the black man is the guy I'm running to for help.
Right.
Because
Well,
that's
that's
just
smart.
where we are right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's our show for this week. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope that you will like and subscribe to it on YouTube. And we hope that you'll be back with us next week on Georgia runoff election day. So for Harry and for Ed, I'm Jimmy Zuma. Have a good night.
Hey, good night, everybody. Thanks.
Adios.